He was about 2 years old when I got him. He was scared stiff of everybody, and whenever I'd put him in the chair, anybody walked by, he'd start to bawl. And that went on for, quite a few months, and I couldn't figure out, Even we had a dog then, and he'd look at the dog and scream. And I finally asked the welfare what was wrong with him, because that went on for so long. And the lady told me that he had been in a house, some foster home, with, I don't know if it was a man that looked after him all the time, and he was in one room, and the man used to go in and change him and feed him, and go out and shut the door. He just kept in one room from the time they got him. And then they brought him to me. The lady came to the door one night around supper time, and she said, "Would you take this child in?" And I looked, and I thought, and you were hanging behind her. I couldn't see you even. Just, you peeked around her skirt. And then when we got in the house, you wouldn't leave her skirt, like you were hanging on to her. And she says, "Well, go on now, you're going to stay here." And I says, "Come on, I got you over to me anyway." And you just looked, and you had big brown eyes, and just tears in them. You were just petrified.
But I see, again, I have all this sort of confusing information. I remember being told that I was someplace, and I was left in a real dirty state, and you and Jean came, and one of you talked the other one into picking me. There were all these pretty babies lined up.
You're confusing that with...
No,
me. That was me.
That was me. But no, the welfare just brought you to me.
No, back...
So the welfare didn't tell you about my background?
No.
They just said, "Here"?
Back
They just,
back
in
then,
fact,
that's what they did. Virtually just come to the door, bang, we've got another child for you.
Yeah. And I had already the 2 of my own and 4 other children. And they says, "Oh, well, keep them for a while. Maybe we could find another place." But they never did come back to get you. And so I was stuck with you.
Well, that happened with all the foster kids, too, though. It was like you take them temporarily, and they ended up there till they grew up.
I've started a search for my family, my natural family.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about this? I mean, does it bother you that I'm going to go back and try and find my natural family?
No, it doesn't bother me at all. I figure you should know.
I came to my foster home when I was 2 and stayed there permanently. I became part of this family, the Wilsons, and they became part of me. And I had brothers, a sister, aunts, uncles, cousins. But when I got older, I realized I was a foster child. I looked different. I had a different last name. But I had a family. And as the years went by, it didn't seem to matter to me who I was, where I came from. I'm 35 now. It does matter. I contacted the Department of Child Welfare and asked for background information on my family. They sent me a summary, told me a little bit about my mother, Lucy Cardinal, a little bit about my father, but no name, and that I had 2 natural brothers, Donnie, 6 years older, and Ronnie, 1 year younger. But I wanted more details, to see the records, to know why I was a foster child, what the circumstances were.
Okay, in June of 51, there was a court hearing to see if you should be made a permanent ward. Your mother was at that hearing, and she had a plan for you. She was planning to take you to her mother's home. And the judge was in agreement with that plan and suggested that you stay in our care for a few days until your mother could take you back home. And she didn't return for you on the day that she planned. There was another hearing on August the 1st of the same year. You were just over a year then, 13 months. And at that hearing, you were considered a neglected child and made a permanent ward of the court. Your mother had been notified of the hearing or the examination, and she didn't come to it. So you've been in our care since that time, on a permanent basis.
Now, do you know why? Are there notes? Are there, comments? Why I wasn't taken in by the extended family, but why my mother didn't come
No,
back for the
no.
hearing? Is there any?
Just a note that she had a problem with alcohol.
Who wrote that?
From the social worker.
So you have the social worker's assessment of the situation. Can you tell me that? Just put as much meat on that as you can.
Yeah, I'm a little uncomfortable with telling you information that you might find distressing.
Tell me, what can you tell me? I mean, I'm not going to jump out the window. What can you tell me? Just, it's critically important that I know these things. I mean, maybe I have I know I have a potential alcohol problem, for instance. So please do not protect me.
When you were left in Edmonton Creche in January of '51, your mom had been picked up and charged with being intoxicated and went to Fort Saskatchewan jail for 2 months. And that is why the police apprehended you then, and why there was that 2 months period where we didn't hear from her.
Is there more than that one instance?
No, there's no further reference to her drinking problem in the file. But you must know that we had very little contact with her after you became a permanent ward, probably none. We have some information on the man that we think may have been your father, but his name was not on the birth registration, so we're not certain it was him. Because we're not certain that he was your father, we can't identify him for you for sure. And that's all the information we have on your mother.
What do we know about my mother and father's relationship? You say she was single, so they weren't married.
No, but she had lived with the man that we believe is your father for 4 years.
And any notes about that? Any comments? What kind of relationship that was?
No, none at all.
See, I had always assumed that I was just, a one-night stand or something. It's quite...
It doesn't sound like it.
It's a whole different... it's a whole different shift in my thinking and feeling. That I might have been the product of
a long-term
relationship.
And I'm sure if you were to meet your mother now, she could verify that and give you the information that you're looking.
Well, she's dead. Don't you have that? She's dead. I didn't bring with me, but I have the obituary announcement. Lucy Cardinal died on April 21st, 1974. So I'm not going to be able to ask those questions. That's why I have to ask you. I want to also be very clear that there's nothing. You said you were concerned about distressing me, and that there's nothing that you have decided not to tell me.
Well, I think of one thing in the file. There was a question about adoption for you. And it simply said, no, Métis.
Wilsons? That Wilsons were going to adopt me?
No, whether or not you would be considered by our department to be placed for adoption.
And somebody said, no, he's not a good risk, he's Métis.
No, Métis.
Okay.
I thought you would find that distressing.
Well, it is distressing, but it's important that I know. It tells me things. I appreciate what you're doing, but I mean, you're even sitting there with the file, and you're going through flipping pages, and you are interpreting and deciding what would be interesting to me, what is relevant to me, and okay, that's the way it has to be. But it's just such an incredible situation. Why is that, Clara?
Because it's the policy of our department not to let people we've been involved with read their files. And I don't know if there's any way around that, Gil.
But obviously I came into care for what was considered in my best interests. And now my best interests are to know.
Let's see, there's information about your foster family. There's information about your brothers. That is all part and parcel of this package.
Again,
So,
just...
to deprive you of your information, we have to do that to protect other people.
Well, how will I ever... I mean, that affects me. You know, I'm still a kid who hid under the table at Wilson's. And I want to find out why. What were the circumstances? Why was I like that? What happened? Clara told me all she could, or all that policy would allow. But there's still a 2-inch thick file laying there. To them, I'll always be a foster child. Somewhere up in Calling Lake, Slave Lake, is my mother's family, my father's family. So I'm hoping even through doing this interview with you that because of your readership up in the north, that there might be somebody who can make some connections for me.
So you'll give me that information and you can publish the detail of it.
That's really what I'm hoping is do some networking. The story about my search ran in the native paper, and almost immediately I received a couple of calls from distant cousins in Calling Lake and from my mother's niece.
She was lonely, very lonely, and she did mention, I know one time when she was drinking, that she had another son. She said, Gil, well, she must have seen you because she said, he's real nice, tall, you know, and I even know where he is, and I think he doesn't live too far from here, you know, but we never did get back to the conversation, and then that's when she died.
I went to find this address in the obituary. 95th Street, 107th Avenue. And I found out that my mother had moved around a lot, but stayed in this general area, Boyle Street area, Skid Row. Number 11. It must have been a rooming house. But it ain't there. I remember this street. I remember it very strongly. So I used to go up and down this street when I was a kid on the buses. And then all that time, while I was growing up, a mile away in my foster home, all that time Lucy was there.
I remember.
I know my last social worker had some contact with my mother. She even tried to get us together, but then my mother died.
I sent for the file on your mum. I asked for a cross-reference, like what information have we got? And because it said her mother, and it was Lucy, wasn't it, was her name?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So through cross-referencing and everything, I got this file that described a woman at the time who was on welfare for medical reasons. She had, as I remember, it was something like arthritis or some medical problem. And I remember absolutely clearly she had written or she had said why she had to give you up for adoption. And she said, had to. Okay, you weren't taken away for cruelty or neglect or anything. But there was a thing which, if you could get your hands on it, you should get it. Because it was a very eloquent thing about, does anyone know what it's like to be a poor woman trying to bring up children in this land? The child would have no hope, no education, nothing. I couldn't do anything, and I want my child to have an education.
That's what she wrote?
Yeah. that was her reconciliation to it anyway. You know, poverty was just absolutely clear about the poverty. You know, that was the prevailing thing I got from it at the time. That's probably why I remember the alcoholism, because to me it seems the only escape available to someone in extreme poverty. What would you feel like if you find a lot of negative stuff there about her too?
I don't know. I mean, I never thought that I was going to be having these thoughts in my head that my mother was a drunk.
Yeah.
So I don't know, you know, but bad or good or whatever, you know, I have to know it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you know, when you don't know anything, you distance yourself from,
Yeah, really.
I mean, from everything.
Yeah.
I had a safe and secure life. I grew up in a non-native foster home. I didn't see brown skin around me, so I gradually became self-conscious. And the drunken Indian men I saw as a kid made me want to turn away from Indian people and being Indian.
Lucy was probably really innocent when she came to the city. She was raised in a mission school, which meant that the bonding for her, between her and her family, was broken. So how can you learn to be a mother? How can you learn to hold a baby and rock it even if you feel it? But it's much easier to believe that you're a bad person. And the kinds of pain and the guilt that, you know, that would have been there all those years. And not only that,
I needed to talk to my friend Maria Campbell because she knew from her own experience what it was like to lose children and to be a Métis woman alone in the city in the 40s and 50s. Well, I can't fathom why a mother would give up her baby.
Why not?
I mean, willingly, on her own, without some...
But you've never been sick and hungry and poor and without a job. See, I can understand how somebody could do that.
So it's done for the sake of the child?
You do it for a child, yeah. I mean, if you've got no job and you have no prospects, I mean, just try to imagine if you had no way of ever being able to provide for anybody. And this is in the 1950s. It's not like, you know, days of women's liberation where women could go out and get help, and there were all kinds of places. Like today, there are homes for women to go to, or agencies. You know, right up until about 1967, there was nothing. Once you give a child up, and you've been told that they've been adopted, or they're in a foster home where somebody really loves them and they're giving them 3 meals a day and they've got all of the opportunities that they would never have with you, then there is no way that she would want anybody to disturb that.
Clara from the welfare office had offered to make initial contact with my family. She did so and sent me this letter. The letter said that my older brother Donnie had died last year. Also that my grandfather had died last year. She talked to Ronnie, my younger brother, and he doesn't want to be contacted. But you have an uncle in Coaldale who didn't know about you but would be happy to meet you. Today, for the first time, I'm about to meet a blood relative, somebody that I am connected to. So how will I look to Uncle Simon? Do I look enough like Lucy, enough like my grandfather? Are my cheekbones right? Does my lip protrude? Or am I still a little brown white man? Today it's important to look Indian, to be Métis.
Oh, hello, Gil. I'm so glad to meet you.
Hello, Simon.
You're a big man. Oh, it's like my dad, I guess. Your grandfather, you know.
Yes?
Oh, yeah, he was big.
It's so good
That is my
to
wife,
meet you.
Audrey.
Hello.
Simon said I could hug you.
Oh, thank you.
Good to see you. I feel as if I know you anyways already. You are big. Come on in. Come on in and sit down.
I'm so glad to see you.
Come on in, Gil.
Yeah, come on in.
Simon.
I'm sorry while I stare at you, but I've never seen...
Well, I'm so glad you found
Blood.
out though, about that, yeah. Gil, you never know. And too bad you never tried meet Donnie too, you know, before he passed out, you know.
Do we look at all alike? Do we look at all alike?
I'm staring and I
don't know.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, he makes you look awfully
You should
small.
see that too. You should see that too. He used to look like me, you know, when he was younger.
Yeah.
Your
I got some
grandpa.
pictures of him. A lot of people say, is that you? They say, well, no. Look the same.
I'm really excited to meet you.
I was sure glad too when I first heard about it. We didn't know you exist that time.
So you didn't know I existed?
No, I didn't know about you guys, but I did know, though. That's the only one we know. Even my Aunt Margaret. She didn't know nothing about you boys. My sister never says anything about it.
Do you know if she was ever married?
No, I don't know. Donnie's dad, they were staying with together, but I don't know if they were married. I think I met that guy once, Donnie's dad.
See, I wonder if Donnie's dad is also my dad.
I know, that's what I wouldn't know that, you see.
Anything you can tell me about Lucy, those times that you went to see her in Edmonton?
I got a picture of her.
Do you have a picture of her?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God.
It's in an album now. That's the only one I have.
Dear God, I want to see it.
Oh, sure.
All right, let's see.
Probably roll off of that and break your neck.
Well,
You want to see Donnie first?
I want to see Lucy first.
Or your mother?
Yes.
Sure.
Please.
I'll do that. The old pictures. There you are. That's my aunt. That's her sister.
Uh-huh.
But she died too.
And this is Lucy?
But I was a young, that's another girl, another aunt, but
Okay.
she died too.
Where is Lucy?
There's her mother here.
Oh, God.
She's very young. That's her mom. She's pretty young then. I don't know how old would she be. You know, you could get enlarged if you want. You know, they can do everything. Photographic, they can do everything now. Just get it separate from them, you know.
It's my mother.
Yeah, it's too bad he didn't get to meet her, you know, before she died. It's 74, I guess she died, yeah.
Are there other pictures of Lucy?
No, that's the only one I have of her, yeah. She'll be about in her 20s.
I look like her. Look at... That's me.
Looks like you, yeah. Do you want it? Instead of this one, maybe it's got
No,
better
this is the
picture.
one I want. This is the first time I've seen my mother.
Yeah, oh, well, that'll be good. As long as you get that. Just, there we go.
Oh, thank you, Simon. Thank you so very much.
Sure, that's fine.
I went to Calling Lake because that's where Lucy was from, where her father lived and many of his family still live. And because the people who called about the newspaper story said they had information about my father. I had spent very little time in Native communities, practically none. But this was the place I could have been from. Somebody else that I met from high level is going to put together some pictures for me. But let me get this straight again. Your grandfather is my grandfather's brother.
Yeah.
Okay.
His name's Cardinal. He's in the old age home now.
See, this is the one I got. This is my mother.
Mm-hmm.
And this, I think this is taken right here. The people I met from my grandfather's family were open to me in general, but became reluctant and hesitant to talk about my father, who they thought he was. They said they just weren't sure enough.
We had only the two, Lucy and Simon. The two kids. And he's saying that your other grandfather was Decoyne.
Then Francis Cardinal Jr. told me that my father was Joe Decoyne, the one who was in the army, drove a cement truck, and lived with Lucy off and on, and that Joe was Lucy's uncle. I checked with Uncle Simon, and he thought Joe Decoyne was staying in a veterans retirement home. Yes, I'm calling to inquire if you have a Joe Decoyne staying there. I just wanted to check if this is where he was at, and I wanted to check how he is, how his health is. Yes? Through all my years of wondering, I wondered least about my father. I canceled him out, the whole idea of father, of ever having one. I couldn't deny the woman I came from, but father meant nothing to me. But now, I wonder. I arranged to meet Joe before the VE Day parade. Joe Decoyne?
Yeah.
My name is Gil Cardinal.
Oh, pleased to meet you. You're Donnie's brother then, eh?
Yes, Donnie was my brother. Lucy Cardinal was my mother.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to meet you, Joe, because from my understanding, you are my father.
Oh. Well, that part, it's hardly impossible. Because I can't have any children, you know, like after the war, but I still respect meeting you. I'm very glad I met you. But when I was married in England, I had one boy, one son, before I went into battle. But after the battle, 43, I was told I couldn't have no more children. But anyway, we're still.
I would still like to talk. I would like to know about Lucy anyway.
Yeah.
I would like to, whatever you can tell me. I just want to know. That's all.
That's good. Here they come now. Then.
Okay.
Nice to meet you.
Sure.
Okay.
I can't believe that's not the face of my father. It's just so strong, the resemblance. I don't think I can start pushing or trying to confront him. Joe says he's not my father, so I'm no further ahead. But I liked him. I just wish I could know for sure. My brother, Donnie, lived and died in the North. I was aware of him for 10 years, from Lucy's obituary. I thought he'd be a rough and tough truck driver or something. he was an artist. His wife Linda wanted to see me. Linda?
Yes, Gil. Oh, I'm so happy to see you. We finally get to meet you. Oh, that's wonderful. Excuse me for staring at you.
I'm just doing the same thing. Excuse me for staring
I've
at
just
you.
been wondering what you look like. Yeah, I can see a bit of the family resemblance. There's a difference, of course. I think you look more like your mother. I have all sorts of magazine articles for you.
Yeah?
Oh, on Donnie, you're going to hear lots.
Linda took me to the Yellowknife Museum to see their collection of Donnie's work.
It's been all over North America. He's got them in England, Germany. They went all over. Here's one that he did while he was in Hay River now. This is one of his really old ones that the museum managed to get. And a lot of people like this one. It's a lot lusher, as you can tell. It's not like Yellowknife. The trees are bigger and grander. Now, what do we got here? Oh, yeah. Here's a lot of people's all-time favorite. This is the Trapper's Cabin. This was done about 6 months before he died.
So good.
When he had one of these things in his head, it was like a photograph, and he couldn't get rid of it until he had it on the canvas. Sometimes I'd say, Don, it's perfect, sign it. We're out of money. And he'd say, no, people are going to be looking at this. I know it's not right. And away he'd go again. I'd be grinding my teeth.
I feel like I'm getting to know Don. Linda still lives in the squatter's cabin Donnie built on an island just outside of Yellowknife.
Yeah, it's definitely a Métis house, you know. I love it. This was Donnie's sanctuary. This was the place where he felt he was at home. And, well, the night he died, he was drinking quite heavily, and he was trying to come home, and he was working on this painting he was going to donate to the Rotary Club. They used to have a sort of a auction, and they'd give the money to some sort of charity every year, and he was going to do Northern Lights on it, and there was Northern Lights. It was a beautiful, icy, cold night out where the snow just shone and the lights were out there, and he was walking home, and from the marks we could find in the snow, he laid down on his back in the snow and looked at the sky for a long time. We found a cigarette butt beside where he'd obviously been laying. And since he'd been drinking heavily, I guess he dropped off to sleep. It was 44 below that night. I guess he didn't even know he was cold. So he just kept on sleeping. I was walking to work the next morning, and there, a few hundred yards from the house, he was curled up, asleep. At least you're getting to know Don through his wife and children. That's one of my favorite photos. It was just so typical of him.
Proud-looking man.
He was very proud. And he also was very moody. I suppose a lot of that was from his artistic temperament. A lot of it could have been from his background, too. He often felt kind of alone and strange, like he was different from other people. Kind of...
That's exactly how I felt. Very detached. partly from knowing that, knowing very clearly my status as a foster child, and that I didn't really belong, and if I wasn't good, I could be sent away. I saw you grow up just knowing that and feeling just tenuous about everything, and that really blows up. It can blow up in your face. That's caused my wife and I much difficulty when I'm unwilling to accept her love, and just so careful and guarded. But it's still something that I carry because I was a foster child.
Yeah, Dawn had that too. There's a picture of Donnie when he was 2 years old. Apparently that was taken just before he was sent to the Roman Catholic mission to be brought up.
What a look.
He had that look right up to the end of his days. It was an expression he'd get. And that was his mother, shortly before she died.
So this is Lucy.
That's Lucy. That was the Lucy I knew.
She looks very Indian here, very native.
Yes, she looked native.
But she was Métis. Just even seeing this picture here of Lucy now, I felt, I don't feel like I felt so close and part of her in that first picture that Simon gave.
Uh-huh.
But she looks so different here and older, and
well, life had dealt her a lot of hard knocks, and if she looked a bit hard there, well,
that's it.
I
She
guess
looks
she
hard. She looks like a hard Indian.
Well,
I'm not prepared for that.
She had built up quite a shell, and had a lot of hurts and anger and bitterness against the world under that shell too. And I guess maybe she was a little hard, but she sure had feelings too, and she cared about you in her way, just like she did about her other sons in her way. It's just that her way wasn't always our way. She just sort of gave you away so that somebody else could take real good care of you. That's the way I look at it. That's the impression I got from her. She was a little defensive about you. She never even told us about Ron. Maybe she felt it would be too painful to ever see any of you when you were children.
It wouldn't have been good for me. I would have been really cold. And it would have been so horrible if contact would have been made when I was just young and unwilling to be responsive, I think that would have been so hurting for everybody. Lucy Cardinal has an unmarked social services grave. The cemetery placed an identifying marker on it so I could find it. And now, I'm just missing the opportunity to ever know this woman, ever see her, ever hug her, ever love her. I want you to know that it's okay now. I understand what happened had to happen. And it wasn't your fault. I'm glad I've come to know you. And I wish you peace.
Gil, you made it. I made it, Danny. How are you? Good. Glad you made it. I miss you.
My search will never end. But through it, I've simply, quietly realized that I belong to two realities. I have two mothers, two families, two cultures. I had just made it back to Edmonton for Carrie's wedding reception, my niece from my foster family. I had been in Hay River today, where my new niece, Colinda, Donnie's daughter, Lucy's granddaughter, was also getting married.
Grant that they may dwell together in unity and love all the days of their life. Give them health, prosperity, and peace.
This is Uncle Gil. No, she wouldn't have sipped in that. Right there.
I got another picture from family in Slave Lake. That's Lucy in the middle, and Joe Decoyne in the white shirt. It's 1955. I would have liked to have told Lucy, I think you probably did the best thing for me. I think that, I feel that, but I'm not sure. And every day now I wonder what my life might have been